Operation Enduring Freedom has gone on for almost 10 years, the longest war in American history. Costing a projected $444 billion since 2001 and 1,614 American soldiers' lives, many people wonder why we continue to occupy the nation of Afghanistan. There are a number of reasons why the government has not withdrawn our forces, but they all boil down to the same thing. There's still good to be done here, evil to be fought, and a job to be finished. Afghanistan has been at war since 328 BC, when Alexander the Great conquered the region. Genghis Khan has also conquered the region, and in 642 AD, Arabs invaded the region and introduced Islam. Through many invasions, the region of present-day Afghanistan was divided into tribes by chieftains, ruled by chieftains. However, in 1747, the country now known as Afghanistan was formed. The 19th century brought two Anglo-Afghan wars. The British and Russian empires fought for control of the area in what was coined the Great Game. The 20th century brought the Third Anglo-Afghan War with Russia. Since 1919, 17 rulers of Afghanistan have been murdered in coups or rebellions. However, there is hope for change. Ahmed Massoud was a driving force in pushing the Soviet Union out of Afghanistan. After Soviets withdrew, he fought constantly against rival factions, committing mass murders and ethnic cleansing. He promoted women's rights and a peaceful democratic state. However, in 1994, the Taliban rose to power and overtook the city of Kabul, the nation's capital. Massoud fought overwhelming Taliban forces and their interpretation of Islam, pleading with the UN to intervene in outrageous human rights violations committed by the Taliban every day. He even warned the US of impending terrorist threats on American soil up until September 9, 2001, when he was killed by two suicide bombers, 2 days before the attacks on the Twin Towers in New York City. Today, Massoud is recognized as a national hero, a martyr for his country, and is mourned every year on the day of his death. America is still looking and waiting for another Massoud to stand up and lead Afghanistan to a peaceful democratic state. However, the Taliban is not the first military government that America has seen that has attacked us. Japan was also that way in World War II. By the 1940s, Japan's military pretty much controlled the government, much like the Taliban did. They instigated a war with the US by attacking and killing thousands of Americans, much like the Taliban did. However, today, Japan is a great ally with a booming economy, and our hope is that one day Afghanistan can be the same way. Some may argue, but this is a different kind of enemy. It's an ideology, not a military. The Japanese fought with an ideology as well. The kamikaze pilots showed us that their ideology was that they would die for their emperor, much like suicide bombers will die for their religion. Unlike the Japanese, the Taliban do not fight under the rule of an emperor, but in fractured cells, spread out all over the region, meaning instead, the only means to victory is total military defeat, of as many cells as it takes to create a stable and peaceful nation. What about the high cost of the country, some might say? The DoD spends an estimated $1 billion a month on Operation Enduring Freedom. Some people question how we can spend that much money in times of an economic crisis at home. The answer to that is that evil doesn't care about economic turmoil and won't take time out from hatred while we get our house in order. On September of 2001, the Taliban took over 2,700 lives, destroyed thousands more. Since then, the DoD has spent $1 billion a month providing humanity relief efforts to war-torn civilian parts of Afghanistan, as well as providing our armed services the tools they need to get the job done in the OEF theater, and to make sure what happened that day 10 years ago never happens again. Being in Afghanistan currently and seeing firsthand the sacrifices made every day by the men and women in the military, I'm proud that our politicians have learned from their mistakes and how they handled Vietnam and are supplying our troops with what they need to make a successful war. Thousands of American troops have already given up their lives defending you and me, which is a far greater price than $1 billion. The United States does not tolerate terrorism or human rights violations. Since World War II, America has fought corruption and human suffering wherever it could. From protecting South Korea in the Korean War, to Somalia, to Bosnia, to Iraq, the United States has defended the helpless and punished the guilty. Peace is sought through political channels, but America realizes when those channels fail. Richard Falk, a professor of international law and practice and professor of politics and international affairs at Woodrow Wilson School, Princeton University, said about the conflict, "There were no credible alternatives to war, neither proceeding by the way of the UN, nor through reliance on the past responses of retaliatory missile strikes and law enforcement efforts, nor by way of diplomacy reinforced by sanctions. On the basis of past experience and past prospects, each of these alternative options generally seemed unable to punish the perpetrators or end the threat, and so the case for war was prevailed as national policy without mainstream dissent. The enemy we went to war with was the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. And even though they've been removed from power, they're still a present threat that kills innocent civilians every day. Until they are completely destroyed and a stable government is held in place without threat of collapse, we cannot say we have completed the job. We cannot say that we have done justice to the people that we are trying to protect. 10 years is a long time to be at war. $444 billion is a lot of money to be spending on war. But the ensured security of our nation and the protection of the people who can't protect themselves is worth every minute and every cent. I walk to work every day not knowing my life or the lives of my coworkers are safe from that day's mortar attacks. But you ask anyone over here, and they'll tell you it's all worth it, because families back home don't have to live with that same fear.